everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining this WE Europe Inspiration session. My name is Susan Lowry, and I'll be your host and moderator today. I am a manufacturing science and technology engineer in a biological pharmaceutical site in MSD in Ireland. I'm also the WE Europe lead within my company and driving its presence here in Europe. And as part of that, I'm lucky enough to be on the WE Local Conference Advisory Board for the last 2 years, last year in Prague and this year in Dublin. So I'm really passionate about personal journeys and development of women. And so I'm especially delighted to welcome our guest speaker today, who will be the closing keynote speaker for WE Local 2026 in Dublin, Deirdre Connaughton. And to learn more about our backgrounds, you can refer to the links in the chat. So thank you again for joining. As we go through the session, feel free to share your questions for us, as well as comments and experiences, but all in the chat, please. We won't be taking any audio comments in the interest of time management. So I have some questions for Deirdre to get us started, and after that, we'll have a live Q&A to address all of your questions and remarks. So Deirdre, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much. I'm excited to be here.
So can you tell us briefly about your current role and how you got there?
Sure. So I'm the site head for Takeda's Bray plant, and we are a solid oral dosage or tablet site, and we supply medicines for oncology, CNS, GI, and rare disease worldwide. One of my passions, kind of similar to yourself, is about people and growth, and I've tried to model that myself. So I really believe in building a strong, stable career base to ensure that you have loads of avenues to explore as your career progresses. And my path to that end wasn't linear. I completed undergraduate in chemical engineering in University College Dublin. I started work on a graduate management program in Belgium with Kingspan, who are an Irish company. I came home for love, and I'm absolutely not ashamed to admit that. I think it's important to say that, but also because I wanted a career in pharma as well. So it's something that in the course I did, there was quite a strong focus on pharma, so it was kind of a natural place that I wanted to spend time in. I joined Takeda 19 years ago in quality as a validation engineer. I moved into CapEx project management, which I truly loved, and I spent almost 10 years. And then that was a pivotal moment for me where I really started to focus then on widening my skill sets and taking the engineering background into new places. So I took management roles in compliance, in operations, and then in OpEx. I became head of business excellence during the time my kids came along. And last year I took on the site head role. So I found that the mixture of quality, engineering, operations, business excellence, it's really shaped how I lead. So I have clear strategy, very clean standards, and very much a human-centered transformational approach. And along the way, I've invested in my own learning. I'm very proud to be Takeda's first Irish female site head. And I see that as a responsibility to widen the path for the next generation of female leaders. And that's one of the reasons why I get involved and I put my hands up for these things. As uncomfortable as it feels, it's really important to me because there weren't a plethora of female site heads in Ireland like you see now. And I really want to encourage people to take the non-standard approach, try it, and grow.
Amazing. Thank you for that introduction. I love the moving for love. It's important to take real life things into consideration when you're talking about your career and your life.
We got married. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your WE Local keynote, one of the topics you'll be talking about is building individual development plans. That's such a relevant topic for the WE community. So could you give us some insights on what you think is a good individual? What do you think a good individual development plan looks like today?
Okay, so maybe in order, I'll call it an IDP, so I don't have to keep repeating it. So, but I think an IDP is a brilliant tool to help accelerate your career. I think that any leader would be thrilled, and I've said this a couple of times to any people I mentor. I would love to see someone proactively seek to develop themselves and take the responsibility and ownership into their own hands. Someone who's talented, who is demonstrating that ambition in a very much a considered kind of systematic manner with clear plans to get there. That's a dream as a leader. And it's really important that when someone is ambitious, that they're not coming full of ideas in their head and just spewing it out, that they've
Mm.
actually kind of really thought about it, completed a lot of self-reflection, and as I say, systematically create a document that's going to help their leader, their manager, help them on their way. So it's kind of a two-way street. So when I think about an IDP, and I would strongly encourage use of Copilot or any of the AI tools to help you with this if you don't have a template of your own. But
Mm.
at the top of the document, it's probably the thing you'll do last, but at the top of the document, I would recommend a smart, specific, measurable, realistic, time-bound aspiration. Keep it to about 18 to 24 months. So what is that role, or is it a specific skill set that you're aiming for? So that's kind of the evolutionary piece at the top. Take your time with this one and think really broadly about the skills, because often I think people, going back to that concept of linearity, you probably have much more skills than just what is needed for your boss's job. So one tip that I'd suggest is, instead of starting with the role you think you want, think of every single role within the realms of possibility, and then call out roles that you are okay with closing the door on. And then
Mm.
what you might find is that what's left is probably broader than just your boss's job. So I would start with that. Then the next thing I would do is focus on skills. So pick two, max three capabilities that really move the needle towards your ultimate goal. So that could be, I don't know, like problem solving comes up a lot, maybe influencing stakeholders, change management, whatever it might be. And define what good looks like. So how are you going to measure that you've actually uh, improved that skill? Is there someone that you know who demonstrates those skills that could act maybe as a mentor role for you? Skills are really harder to demonstrate growth in versus like delivering a task or a project. So I think it's quite important to identify someone kind of independent within your circle who can give you kind of feedback as you grow. So we start with the SMART goal, then the skills. And again, this is probably the hardest part of an individual development actions. There is quite a commonly known approach to learning, and it's the 70-20-10 model. So 70% of it is stretch work. So it can be projects or trying out a rotation, a stretch assignment, something that's quite tangible and easily is goes with a SMART goal. And that should be that can be kind of quite easily attained. But what's really crucial when you're learning is that you actually practice it. So that's the 70%. 20% should be coaching and mentoring. Oftentimes I see people who do a course. The 10%, by the way, spoiler alert, is the targeted learning. But I see a lot of time people do a course, but then they don't really have the full support of their boss, and they haven't really kind of spoken about how they can employ that in their role. So they don't have kind of the coaching, mentoring, feedback element. And then they don't get the opportunity to actually practice it. So they miss out on the 70 and 20, but they've done the 10%. So it's really important that when you're writing that IDP, you're really spelling out, I'm going to do the learning. This is my opportunity to practice it. And here's the help I need from you along the way to help me, like, give me that feedback. And if you're not that person, I'm going to find someone who's going to help me. Not in a threatening way, by the way, but, I'm going to help someone who's going to give me that feedback. So like courses are really great, but it's the application of learning on the job that's really going to change your capability. It's important that you log it where you can see it. So a lot of companies have Workday as a system. It's somewhere that I would log my own, log it with HR, log it somewhere that you can review it quarterly with your manager. and make it standard work. So it's something that you check in on every, I would say quarterly would probably be a decent cadence for something like that. And just in order to make it a win-win for everybody, it would be amazing if you could have your goal have some relevance to the success of the business. So, if it's a project management, if it's leading through change, whatever it is, make it attractive for your boss or who you're having that growth conversation with, so that there's a win-in for them as well. Is there a project that they need to do, or a stretch assignment that you could take on? Something like that. So your company will be more likely to work with you on your idea if it's a win-win approach. So try and have that line of sight.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's really good tips and tricks in there for sure, on how to have those really good conversations and quality conversations with your manager. So leading on to my next question, like a key element of IDPs is to have quality conversations with managers. How would you define that, and what advice would you give for someone trying to get that support in their career objectives?
Yeah, and you can have as many dreams and aspirations as you want, but fundamentally you need somebody in your corner who's ready to support you on your journey. There are, of course, everyone's got a one-on-one with their manager. And you can have a quality conversation focused, which a lot of one-on-ones are, which are talking about the work you're doing ongoing at the moment. This is a little bit different. This type of quality conversation is specific to your growth. So a quality conversation is two-wayed, it's prepared, and it's very specific. So it's very important. It's very important that you call out the quality conversation related to your IDP as that in the meeting invite. This is a growth conversation versus a performance conversation where you're going to reflect on something you've already done or something you're currently doing. So it's really important that you can name them in the meeting title. I think it's a good idea to put yourself in your manager's shoes. And they might just be nervous themselves about having a growth conversation, because they probably might not have gotten training on this before. And if they come with some ambitious person who's really excited and really wants to drive something, and they don't have anything to fall back on themselves because they've never had that experience, you can just imagine that can be kind of scary for them. So I do think it's a good idea to have some prep done in advance, to send out an agenda in advance. And what would be brilliant is share like a one-pager kind of checklist of things you're going to discuss on the meeting. I think like on an ongoing basis, like something that's moved the needle for you in terms of your IDP since the last one, and a status update on each of your IDP actions. Use the same template every time, just really think standard work and send the document in advance. I think it works well and everyone feels more comfortable when you have a very specific ask. So going back to what I said at the very start, you can't come with this huge laundry list or very abstract ideas of asks. Can you sponsor me to lead this project? Or I want to get more presentation skills under my belt. Would it be okay if I presented the latest numbers to the SLT or whatever it may be? Something really specific. That's what a manager can support. And I would say definitely, agree kind of the rules up front, so, we're going to meet every quarter. We're going to capture the actions in this following log, so we can both see the progress. And finally, and this kind of leads a little bit into what I'll discuss at the keynote, is naming your saboteurs. Again, it is disarming when you acknowledge to your manager, like say, I can acknowledge right now, I am this like high achiever. So I always expect perfection out of myself. And that means if I deliver 99.9%, it's never good enough. And I'll give myself a big black mark. So it's really good to stop and call that out and invite your manager to join you on that journey. When you demonstrate a little bit of vulnerability, you actually disarm the whole thing and it brings it down from maybe a state of tension where a manager is can't support something or is intimidated by something that you're going to do. You want my job, you're coming for my job. Well, actually, no, you become a little bit more human and less about, the task at hand. So I think that's just an important thing to create quite a nice psychologically safe space. And it's not all on the manager. It's on you
Mm.
as well. So as I said, sometimes people have this idea that like, I'm a talent, I'm sitting here and nothing's happened, you know? Well, actually, no, the power is with you, right? And it might be a case, it's not necessarily all the time that the manager, just doesn't think you're a talent. It's that maybe they don't know what to do because they've never had that hand helping them out. So creating kind of a boundary and a nice safe space where you can go, listen, I am really ambitious. I've identified this project that I think will like close a gap here. It's something that I can see that I can do in the next 18 months, and it's really going to help my presentation skills and my project management skills, and I'm going to lead through change really well. I might get a bit of AI in here as well. Could
Mm.
you help me pave the way with this manager? All of that is much kind of easier to absorb than, I need to be the next CEO in 2 years. Why are you blocking me? Because sometimes you do get it that way, And then equally, I should say for managers, they have as equal an importance in terms of creating that psychologically safe space where you can really get to the nub of growth conversations.
There's a lot in there to unpack, and I know
I
people.
know, and I'm speaking slowly compared to how I normally speak, but there is a lot, and but I just think that like it's there, right? We would love to have people speak out more about their passions and their growth mindset.
A bit, but say you're like, if your relationship with your manager or whoever you're having these career discussions with hasn't gotten off to a great start, how
Yeah.
do you get it back on track?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you need to name it. So I'm a big fan of calling something out like, oh, you kind of need to name, oh, perhaps maybe I've come on, I don't know if we've got off to the best start. Can we take a reset? Just again, call it out. And I would also have a aim to have a good feedback session on both sides. I'm really interested to know how you've perceived this approach, and is there something that you and I can work on together to kind of get a recontract of the norm that we're going to have for these growth conversations. So maybe, do you want to do this in person versus on Teams or Zoom? Should we kind of reflect after every session with each other? Do we want to have it at a more frequent cadence? And maybe a short little update after every check-in would be a nice idea, because just to build that trust again. So again,
Mhm.
oftentimes put yourself in the other person's shoes and break it into micro-sized bites. I feel that would help.
That makes a lot of sense, and like that, it humanizes it as well,
Yeah.
and it just allows you to say, "I'm sorry." Go again,
Well,
you
don't
know.
apologize for everything. That's my other learning. Because like no, because it's a two-way street, right? So we just kind of go, maybe on reflection, I don't know if this was like the best start we've had. Let's take a reset. But yeah, I'm working on saying not saying sorry. It's an ongoing battle.
A lifelong ambition for a lot of
Oh,
us, I feel
yes,
like.
absolutely.
Amazing. So I'll wrap that up in terms of most of my questions. So I'll open the floor to the wider group if you do have any questions. So that was a great snapshot of what your keynote topic will be about in Dublin. So what else can we expect from the full version?
Oh, okay, great. So,
Mhm.
I am going to definitely slow down my my speaking, but no. So we're going to talk about acknowledging the saboteurs. So I'm going to talk about why so many high performing women are exhausted. And it's not because we're doing the wrong things, it's because we're doing everything. I mean, like trying to organize camp for my kids this week and trying to bake something for someone. And oh God, I run the football and I do all these insane amount of things. And it's not because we're doing the wrong things. So
Mhm.
I've spent a lot of time in the last year in particular thinking about practical ways to slow the moment down, to like pause, to name what's really happening. This
Mhm.
is just, Deirdre, this is your insane personality here. It's that judgment saboteur out again. And then choosing one small intentional action so we can build trust, psychological safety, and sustainable leadership. And I think the key word there is that sustainable leadership. And as I talk about that intent that comes both ways, that we both have something. I share a little bit of my own personal journey in a bit more detail, the bumps along the road and the moments that mattered. When I look back on my career, I can remember like two or three moments that like changed everything. And what was
Mhm.
it about that leader? What did that leader do that really changed it for me? So look at again, we're just trying to shift from relentless doing to
Mhm.
intentional leadership for both ourselves and for the people in our circle of influence.
That's perfect. That leads really well on to our first question from the Q&A section. From Vanessa, said so many questions, but one in particular is, as a senior leader, do you have an example of something you were interested in to learn this year?
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa, for the question. So, I as you can tell, I speak really passionately about this. And it is, I've been trying to find over the last year what like motivates me as a leader. I spent again putting my judgment, my little judgment gremlin on my shoulder. I spent a lot of the earlier start of my leadership trying to be the best of my previous boss, be the best James, his name was that I could be. And then it's like realized, no, no, no. I have a different style. I have a different unique selling point, and I want to kind of grow that at scale. So for me, it's about learning about the different parts of the manufacturing world that I live in, which is in Takeda. Learning from the external parts of manufacturing and reaching out into my external network a little bit more and swapping those ideals. So for me, I've found a place in culture and upskilling that I really want to focus on more. So I
Mhm.
want to kind of absorb as much as I can in order to kind of build on a program that I've been trying to make my unique selling point. So really that kind of cross-functional work more cross-functionally, internal and external from my company.
Perfect. That seems like a very realistic and attainable goal that you've set yourself there. um, so if there's any more questions from the chat, feel free to add them in, and I can ask. I want to revert to something we spoke about earlier, so
Okay.
around IDPs in general and how to form
Yeah.
them. How do you think that changes, or what different considerations should be taken for different career stages when you're developing your IDP?
Yeah. To broaden the more you settle into one path and you just then you go for your boss's job, but it's a very narrow tree as you move into mid-career and senior career. So I would really think open as many doors as possible in your early career and try see if there are rotational options. And if it doesn't work, if you're a talent, don't worry about it. You can always they'll find a role for you. So for me, that's really important. I think when you're mid-career, you're really looking for building on your depth and thinking more enterprise wide. So leading like things like cross-functional programs, again, just to dip your toe and see how it goes. think about mentoring as well. And then you have a responsibility as you become more senior in the company then to build other leaders. So you need to be really thinking about succession planning, changing culture, and that's surprise, surprise, that's one of the areas I feel quite passionate about. It's not about the what you deliver, it's the how you deliver. And when you can deliver at scale, that's what I think you should be focusing on.
Yeah, perfect. And I think probably the last question we'll have time for from the Q&A section, but thank you, Raphael. How do you find managing changes, embracing the changes and or figuring out the consequences or pushback?
Yeah, so as not natural as it feels to me, because I am I like control. I have really, really, really been focusing on leaning into the change in my role, change in my personal life, change in the organization. And no, I am if you know the Insights Discovery colors, I'm a red personality. So I'm usually like, be brief, be bright, be gone. And I'm blue because background engineering, so I like the data. And when I get with something that I can't control and I don't have all the answers for, it's an unnerving place for me. So I've been very intentionally kind of leaning into the positive, looking for that sunshine yellow moment, and trying to find the best path forward. Nothing can ever change. So for me, the only thing that's constant is change. So you just have to find, if change happens, find the best path forward for you and your team if it's applicable. But I don't necessarily think that you can push back if it's appropriate, but I think you will never get back to where it was. If a change has already left the station, you might be able to change some elements of it, but I think you need to like lean a little bit into it and be part of the change you want to see in the world. You know what I mean? And then you can perhaps change some of the edges. That's how I feel.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap it up. So thank you so much, Deirdre, again for joining and for sharing your topics and what you'll be speaking of at WE Local. I personally can't wait to see your closing keynote speak at WE Local Dublin on the 24th of April, Friday.
No
No pressure at all.
Hey, don't leave me on my own on the day.
No, you'll be with the community of people supporting you. Don't worry. To your keynote. So thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Bye, guys.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the interactions. Love seeing the little interactions and reactions in the chat. And thank you again to Raphael and Vanessa for your questions. So you can catch Deirdre's full keynote speak, as I said, on Friday the 24th, the closing session. You can find all about the great agenda in the links provided of the WE Local. The full schedule is available on their website. For best registration rates, for the early bird rates, make sure to sign up by the 2nd of April as well. If you haven't already registered, do so quickly. That's this week. So, and we'll also have another keynote interview coming. This time it's from our opening keynote speaker, Audrey McCormick. She's a research facility lead at MSD in Ireland, and it will be available on the SWE podcast portal on the 14th of April, so look out for that. And for all general information is available at our events homepage, welocal.swe.org/Dublin. Thank you so much everyone for your time and have a great day. Thank you.